So,
Nice.
yeah, just collectively it all ends up coming together, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Artists and musicians are creators, and we talk about how much of a gift and a privilege it is to be able to create, because you know, we have God, our creator, and then for us to do it and express ourselves in a way that's positive and not only helps us individually, but we give other people the opportunity to tap in and have that same experience is something that you should take a lot of pride in, right? This is R&B podcast with Russ and Blake. We have a guest for you today. R&B podcast with Russ and Blake.
Ooh, that pause though.
Oh, welcome back to R&B Podcast. You know how to put a little sauce on the intro song, because we got a special guest with us today. It's Russ, it's Blake, and we have Miss Mariah Maduro, aka Mo, singing sensation, good friend of ours. She's in our wedding, sang our first dance song, and she's been in my wife's life for many, many years, and she's been in mine for several years, and we appreciate her so much. We just had to have her on the show.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, Miss Mo.
Oh,
how are we doing?
Doing really good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Mo, you know, you break up the monotony on my Instagram feed, because every now and then I'll be scrolling and then I'll see you doing a cover to a song or your own song, and I always sit there and watch it because it just brings great vibes to the feed. So thank you for that, you know.
Yeah, and always has her own little flavor to it. For the people who are not familiar with your music, will you just tell us the groups that you're involved in and what kind of genres you dabble with?
Yeah. So I'm a part of two bands, and then I also write my own music. So what I usually do is I'll write my own music, and I kind of will disperse that between the two bands based on the genre. A lot of the more like rock heavy or indie rock stuff will go more towards PKW, which is more of a 4-piece band. We do more like indie rock, pop stuff. And then on the other side, I play with the Left Side band. And with them, we do a little bit more like soul R&B. A lot of them have backgrounds in like a lot of pop music, but, you know, like influences from people like Marvin Gaye and just like, you know, like Motown stuff and so.
And they're very different in the structure of the bands. So PKW is what, 3 people or 4?
PKW is in between 3 and 4. So 2 guitars, a bass, drums, and then sometimes a piano.
And then the Left Side is structured. You have more people, and then, so who all's involved there?
It's a little more stacked. So 2 guitars also, bass, a drummer, a pianist, and then every once in a while we'll have a trombonist, and then he'll go in between doing trombone and harmonies, and so it's all, the Left Side is a little more individual musicians coming into a band and kind of sharing between each other. And then PKW is a little more like my project that I've created with some of my friends, and I'm like, hey, this is my music. Let's
cool.
Let's explore that.
And that's cool that you're working with both of those at the same time. You don't feel like you have to choose one or the other.
Right.
You know, I haven't listened to the Left Side yet, but PKW I've enjoyed a lot just because it's different than my normal music that I download, but you know, you can feel the energy behind your guys' performances, and you know that it comes from the heart since you guys write your own music and stuff. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the Left Side, because even having more collective minds kind of mashing those genres together it's not easy to do, right?
And Blake's saying like he feels the energy from the songs. Do you think that since you guys are having people playing individual instruments to create the whole sound, that gives to that kind of energy of the song?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because I think that we all kind of individually go and practice on our own and kind of like go into our craft, and then we're able to come and bring some of those things into with each other, you know, and I mean, sometimes it's hard because it can sound like just noise, you know, because there's so many of us, but eventually, you know, like we all have good enough ears to where it's like, okay, we gotta chill or either bring it up, you know. So yeah, it can be difficult sometimes when we're all so creative, because then we get together and we're like, well, listen to this, and then like we're not doing anything really, we're just like, but
showcasing each other's talents.
Right. But I've realized that that's important too, is to be able to just freely express that and just kind of like pick ideas from sessions like that.
Right, because I know that in these softwares where you can create music that you could just add the piano and make it sound how you want it, or add the bass. So having people who actually have to be behind it and put their individual energy into it, that creates like the gumbo.
Right. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think back to like the original jazz and the scat, where sometimes it almost sounds like noise, but for someone that really appreciates music, like you hear those individual talents, and you hear like somebody just going off on the piano, and it might not really be with the pace of the rest of the song, but it flows in together. It's just a different style, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then, so do you feel like, well, first of all, how long have you been performing?
So performing live, only about 5 years. Yeah, since around 2018.
And what about recording?
Recording, oh man, that's very new. So within the last like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about playing?
Playing since I got my first guitar when I was 14.
Okay.
So.
And self-taught, or?
Yeah. So a lot of YouTube, a lot of guitar tabs, and just. I do have an old YouTube still up that has like a bunch of like old videos of me just sitting in front of the camera. My voice is like so high, and I'm like, oh man, who was that?
Yeah, but, different life, right?
Yeah.
And then you play other instruments though.
Yeah, so I took a piano class in high school, so that kind of helped me read music. Okay. Which I don't know if I can do that anymore, but tagging off from that, it helped me kind of like learn drums and how the rudiments and notes and stuff go. And but yeah, for the most part, I just it's a lot of feeling rather than the reading and the structure of it.
Yeah, I like that. I've always been one to feel music anyway. I feel like it took me maturing as a man to really like think about the lyrics that I was saying, because I would know songs and not really think about the deep meaning of it. I've talked before about how I didn't appreciate Jay-Z's lyrics. Like I would be reciting his song, but then I'm like, oh, he really is like rapping about the blueprint.
Like what is he actually saying?
Yeah. I was like, oh goodness. Yeah. So there's levels of depth to songs. And, for me personally, I feel it first, and then I listen, and then I'm able to actually feel what they're telling me rather than what they're playing to me too.
And all the way down to the percussion, right? So they'll say that 808s have a certain thing that they make us feel, and these different drums have different energies that they make us feel. You've heard that, and that's really interesting. Do you know some of the different like reasons why that happens?
Honestly, it's a lot of like it's kind of like therapeutic reasons. Like, you know how like when you see certain colors, you feel a certain way, or like people will design a space for you to feel something when you go into it. I think music is very much the same. Like if you have an 808 beat, you're already like, I'm gonna get in that. But and then you have like more acoustic stuff, or so it's just it's that feeling. And then from there, you just kind of like piece things together and like whatever sounds good, and then you just kind of build off of that.
For sure. It's always fascinated me how these sounds are therapeutic, and that's been an old study as well, right? The certain chords they would play next to people's areas that had ailments to try to heal these things, and in ancient medicine, like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, Janae Aiko, right? Frequencies. Right. She's all about the different harmonies and when you decide to introduce certain sounds and how loud a certain sound is and things like that. And there's a lot that goes into those things. Yeah. And it's cool how it starts as feelings, like these sounds evoke emotions, and then people that go into study it, they can kind of use it as a tool. Right. And A lot of people don't realize that some of these industries have that down to a T. So some of these songs that go viral and things like that, they're using a lot of those the things that have research behind them as far as which sounds to use and what beat to use and how the chorus is gonna tie in and things like that, right?
Yeah. No, I like to use Billie Eilish's music as a good example. Like there's a couple songs where you expect the bass to be there, but it's very muted, but it intrigues you so much because of that. And it's like it should be a bass heavy song, and like you feel it, but you don't hear it at the same time. Her song Lost Cause does that, where it's very muted throughout the whole song, but like you still feel it for some reason. So I play that song live with my band, and of course we put a little more oomph behind it, so it sounds completely different. But the way that her music is produced, I think it's a lot of like sounds and frequencies that just like are so intriguing to the ear that people are just like, I'm like obsessed with this. I want to listen to this over and over again. Yeah. So
I am not like directly familiar with a lot of her music, but the songs that I've heard from her have always been really interesting. And then I never know. I'm like, who is this? And they're like, Billie Eilish. I'm like, oh, of course it is. Like I have that same reaction every time. So I definitely need to like check out a whole album because it's so different hearing one song versus an album, because it's like watching one scene out of a movie if you just listen to one song, right? Because they're trying to tell that story, and a lot of times the way that they even align the songs in the album is purposeful.
Right.
Do you have a favorite album?
Ooh, of all time?
Of all time.
Shoot.
That's a crazy question, right?
I'm gonna have to go. I mean, I'm gonna have to go basic a little bit on this. John Mayer's Continuum.
Yeah.
Okay.
That album, true. I can listen to it anytime, any day, and I'm just always like,
Gravity.
Yeah, this is it.
Gravity's on that. I love
Gravity.
it.
And then he does Jimi Hendrix, Bold as Love, and that just gets me.
Acoustic Lover.
Yeah.
Blake, you got an answer now too. What's your favorite album?
Yeah, you guys.
My favorite. You guys. Of all time. Oh, see, I shouldn't even done this. Because I want to say a John Legend album, but I don't know if that's correct. And then I think of a lot of different John Legend songs that are on different albums. So I'm like, I can't really pick one.
The one that Ordinary People's on? Is that what you're thinking?
You know, that's one that, for me, it's so nostalgic because I can remember the time when I was listening to that song. And it's with a lot of music, that's what like becomes important to us, right? Because again, it evokes emotion and we can tie it to these memories. So I remember listening to Ordinary People driving to elementary school when I lived in Kansas City, right? And that's a time where I don't even have a lot of memories, but that one specifically was pretty influential in my life. So that was a good album. I could maybe put that up there, at least in the top three, pretty confidently. But even his most recent one, which I can't remember the name of the actual album, but they had Actions on it and Conversations in the Dark. Because we had some of those songs that played at our wedding, right? So again, it evokes those emotions and those memories, and it'll just always have to be in my top 5 at least, just because of everything else that's tied to it. And then Mo performed at my wedding, and she played Best Part by Daniel Caesar, which is also a great album. And me and Maddie had an emotional connection over that album. We would listen to that album quite a bit. So now, again, tying it back into our wedding, that's a special one too.
Yeah, and you killed that. I remember I was watching, like, this is fire.
And then I'm like trying to remember it because obviously we were dancing and it's just like it doesn't even feel like anyone else is there at that point.
Right.
And then so it's like when I remember it, I feel like I was listening to the actual song, but it was you performing it. So it was cool though. I'm definitely glad that we had that. Not a lot of weddings get to have live performances, and we had a great one. So
I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that for you guys. I do feel like I blacked out during that whole moment.
Right.
It was like, oh man, yeah.
Love was in the air. That was a lot of energy there.
Very special.
March 7th.
For sure. That makes me wonder, how, when you first started performing in front of people, did you have a lot of performance anxiety?
Ooh, well, yeah. And actually Maddie can testify to this, but in middle school, I used to have people turn around at recess, and I would sing, and they would be turned around, and and I would sing to them. I'm like, guys, like I think I can sing.
Yeah, but you have to turn around.
But you got to turn around. Yeah. And then from there, I played the national anthem for 8th grade promotion. So I feel like doing that kind of was like brought me into the performance part of it. And I think at certain point, I'm nervous until I'm there and I start, and then it just, everything kind of goes away.
The anticipation is the hardest part.
Yeah,
right?
the anticipation, and just like, do I have everything I need? Is my guitar tuned? Like, just those kind of things. And then as soon as I start playing, it kind of just fades, and it's just like me playing music. Yeah.
I know exactly how that feels.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody has that when something that they're interested in, you know, they get to a certain point where it's like, this is what I do, you know, this is just what I do. So
I know. And it's interesting because like the night before when you're going to sleep, all you're doing then is just trying to go to sleep. So if you're thinking about it, you're like, I'm not doing what I do yet, but my mind is there. So it's a weird feeling, you know, it kind of takes you out of the moment, but then you get there and you're like, all right, cool, I'm here.
Right.
Yeah. Have you had any situations where you were like on stage and had a malfunction of your equipment or anything where you had to improvise?
Yeah. Plenty of times. Mostly with the band, so it's been good, so that you know the band will carry some of the music, and then we'll like, okay, just keep going so we can fix whatever's going on. So it's nice to have that dynamic where, you know, everybody's listening for those things, and if someone hears that something's going off or something's wrong, one of us can step out and do it, and then the rest of us can kind of like keep the vibes or whatever. But sometimes you gotta just be like, hey everybody, we're gonna stop real quick and just figure this out, and then we'll come back. And usually people are like, yeah, you know, let's go, and then it makes you feel good, like, okay, this happens, you know.
Even to the biggest artists,
right? So I mean, it happens not very often, but like, you know, be playing and then you step on your guitar cord and it pops out of your guitar and you're like, okay, like let's start over, or so little things like that. But usually playing with a band is easier because they've kind of like got your back in that moment.
And you guys mostly do covers, or do you also do songs that you guys came up with?
Yeah, so it's a collective. So we'll it kind of depends on the venue that we're playing also, because a lot of venues now will say like, well, we want mostly covers, but you know, play originals here and there. And it can be hard sometimes because it's like, well, our originals are the ones that we play the best because those are the ones that we know. You know, I'm always going to play my originals better than cover songs because they're my songs. But mostly cover songs with the Left Side band, because we tend to play a lot of festivals and just events that a lot of people are just there to like enjoy the music, and we want to bring a vibe that's like, you know, this song, dance along, sing along, you know. And then with PKW, it's a little more original based, with original music, which is a really nice outlet, you know. And then we get the gigs where we're able to play just original music, and those are honestly my favorite, just because it's you write a song and then you don't hear it necessarily with the other parts, and then you go and play it and it's like, whoa, I did not expect it to be like this. But
so much life gets like breathed into your writing when you add all those other elements.
And it's like things that I don't think of, you know. My bassist Lindsay can be like, hey, well, what about this? And I'm like, you're right, that does sound really good. Or, you know, Seth, the other guitarist, he has a lot of flair in his playing. So it's like he'll play and then he'll play like a note off, and it like brings some kind of like flair and dynamic to it. So just collectively it all ends up coming together, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Artists and musicians are creators, and we talk about how much of a gift and a privilege it is to be able to create, because you know, we have God, our creator, and then for us to do it and express ourselves in a way that's positive and not only helps us individually, but we give other people the opportunity to tap in and have that same experience is something that you should take a lot of pride in, right? And you know, over time, as you spend the time on your own perfecting your craft, and we've also talked about how, you know, artists have to really be appreciative of themselves and confident in themselves, because you don't know how other people will react to your music, and that's not really what it's about. And sometimes you can get lost if you start trying to make music for your audience rather than for yourself, right? Have you ever had a period where you thought maybe, oh, I need to alter my style or my approach to fit into a certain I guess desire that may be what people are looking for in the area, possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of musicians kind of go through this, where it's like, I want to make money doing it, but I also love the things that I do, and not everyone is into that, you know? So there was a point where I got in with this booking company that was booking me for gigs, and it was like 90% covers. So I had to learn a lot of covers just to get these gigs so I can get paid. And I focused more on that, and I realized how unhappy it made me just doing other people's songs and not being able to like share mine, or like go into songs that I wrote and like, you know, recompose them or something like that. But yeah, it gets hard once money is involved, I feel like, because then you're like, well, do I need to change to make more money, or is it gonna come to me if I keep doing my thing and keep like honing in on what I do?
Right.
So yeah, that's always a battle in my head, and I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, it's still a learning process, but I'm definitely gearing more towards, you know, like, I believe that my original music is people like to hear it, you know, and it's nice to hear. So I feel like the more that I play it, the more it'll start to become as if I were playing covers, you know? Yeah.
Nice.
For sure. I've heard a lot of artists in interviews say that, you know, as an artist, you have to go live, so then you can come back and write from your perspective of whatever you go through in life, trials and tribulations. And some artists will say that they almost seek out more adversity in their life, like relationships and different things, so then they can have something to write about. Have you ever found yourself like living that way, thinking that, oh, if I go through something hard, then I can come back and make some music about it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, most relationships end up in a song, so, or like an album or whatever, you know, like it's I mean, it's therapeutic. It's a way to release feelings or things that, like, maybe I shouldn't say to their face, you know, or something like that. So but yeah, it's poetry at the end of the day, you know, like writing lyrics and stuff. So and I feel like a lot of writers put themselves in environments where there's a lot going on around them, just so it's like, okay, well, this person's living this way, I get to kind of absorb that a little bit. And I'm a person who falls in love really easily, just with anything, people, things, you know, I get really fixated. So I like to have a lot of things around me so that I can kind of piece them together, and then it comes out in my music also.
Nice. Has that always been the way that you went about making your music, or was it something else that kind of drew you into beginning your musical journey?
I think that's kind of always been when I started writing music, it was like an I didn't realize that it was an outlet for my feelings until like I go back and I read what I wrote and I'm like, oh, whoa, is that what I was feeling? Or, it's, and it's like, I mean, I know that you have personal training and it's like, that's your craft and that's what you like to do. And then when you do it yourself and you're not with other people, it's like you feel like you're releasing things that like, it's very releasing, very relaxing.
Nice. Yeah. Have you been consistent since you started, or was there a point in time where you fell off? Maybe work or school or something was getting in the way of you focusing on your creative?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same with like trying to make money in music. It's like, that's not necessarily possible for me right now, is to live off of just music. So, we have to get second job, and then me being the type of person I am, I get fixated on the job and then I do that and then I forget about the music. Or there was a time in my life where I was in a relationship that didn't really allow me to express freely those feelings and write music without feeling safe, to do that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I think that's with everything, life experiences, and environments you put yourself in. Some are more comfortable than others. So yeah, there was a time where I wasn't really writing music. It was just kind of like, music is there for me when I need it, and I was really focused on being a bar manager at the time, and doing that, and that took up a lot of my time. And I was also in a relationship, so when I wasn't at work, I was, at home with my girlfriend doing that, and it just didn't allow me to have time to myself and do that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think of like the personality types that come with someone who gets in a relationship with an artist. I think about these like Jasmine Sullivan or Janaea Aiko. It's like, it seems like it'd be kind of difficult to be in a relationship with them because that if you go through something, it might end up on a song.
Or like SZA.
Or SZA, exactly.
She wrote a whole album.
Right. I mean, when artists fall in love with each other, Big Sean, Janaea Aiko, right? Then there's that level of understanding.
That's
I
true.
feel.
Yeah.
And but like you're saying, if someone isn't familiar with the emotions that an artist feels, or the highs and the lows, and the time that goes into perfecting your craft, then there can certainly be a little bit of a struggle and trying to keep the relationship happy and alive too, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jay, one of our friends, Jay, he goes by Lil Cordy. He's a dope hip hop artist, but he has this song where he talks about, he's like, when I'm up, you looking mad at me. And he's talking about just how in his relationships, when he starts like doing better with his music, his significant other is like upset about it. And then when he's falling off, she's like kind of happy, so it's like an interesting dynamic of that with artists, because they have to watch a whole bunch of people loving what you're doing.
Exactly. You have to be okay with that.
And then you're absorbing the energy from all these people, and they're elevating you, and that significant other might feel left out of that, because they feel like they should be right there next to you.
Exactly.
In the spotlight with you, right? And you're like, I want all these people to know that I'm with you and we're a package deal, right? But you have to let somebody get up on stage and have their persona and do their thing and perform, and just know that when they're off the stage, it's back to you, and be secure in that way, right? So another thing with musicians and bands and artists, I don't think a lot of people think about the business aspect. We've discussed how with our businesses, it's tough being a one-man band where you're the CEO, you're the secretary, you're the accountant, you're doing all the jobs on yourself, right? So as an artist, if you're the person that's doing the bookings and doing the audio checks and doing all of the organization and making sure that there are being finances distributed and stuff, is that something that's been difficult? I know it's a lot different as an individual and working with 3 people and then working with 6 people. So since you do all of the above, how do you go about organizing that?
That's a really good question, because for a while it was really difficult to understand that I was doing all of it. That, man, like, I do have to keep track of all of this, and I have to know a little bit of everything.
Right.
Which that can be hard, because I try not to fixate on one thing and just get too deep into it, because I need to know more about, I need to learn the financial side or the audio side. The good thing about being in a band is that a lot of these people have gone into their craft. So we have we have like kind of like a production team for the left side. So Ernie's little brother has been going to school for producing music.
Nice.
So he's kind of like the audio engineer. He does the audio. We figure that out. Ernie is a great face for the band. He's very he loves to talk to people. He's got a great smile, so he walks up to someone, smiles, and just, can get bookings and stuff. And then you have some of the other parts of the band, like Jude, our bassist, is an artist. So he's able to like make flyers and make logos and stuff. So it's very new with these guys that I don't have to be involved in every little part, I can kind of focus on my music and do, piece these little things together and learn from those guys, do my music, and then come to them and then be like, hey, this is what I got. What else can we do with it? So, I'm very appreciative of being in a band that has these different interests, because I don't have to do it all myself most of the time. And then I can focus on my craft is a little more songwriting and then like stage sound. So it's been really nice to kind of fixate on just that and like kind of hone in that craft. And same with the other guys, they don't have to worry about, if we're setting up for a performance and they need like the sound to be a certain way, like I'm already in my head thinking, well, this is the way it should be set up to have the best sound.
Right.
Just because that's what I've studied and,
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is your favorite just songwriter?
Ooh, that's a good question. Songwriter. Man, that's a really good question. Well, I kind of have phases. So right now, there's this band called Harbor that I really like, and it's not necessarily the lyrics. They have really good dynamics within their songs, so they kind of take you on a story through their songs. And it may start very mellow, and then they'll hit a riff that you're like, oh man, that's nice, and then they'll change it a little bit, and then they'll go like halftime and bring it back up. So I like a lot of stuff that has that change in it, so that it's keeping you interested in what's next in the song. So
that's kind of how these singing competition shows are set up, to where people have to understand how to do that and take you through those levels. You have one song to really show off everything you got, right? So they like to start out low and then have to climax, but then show off their little riffs and stuff in there. So not everybody's able to do that. Some people just have that one steady state, and some people are really successful with that too, though, right?
Right. And that, some people like hearing that too. And I do find it hard sometimes when I'm playing music, if I'm playing it exactly the way, like a cover, if I'm playing a cover song exactly the way that it's played, it's boring to me, because I'm like, it's
like karaoke.
I'm just playing it the way that it was made. Like, it may sound really great to the crowd, but to me, I'm like, man, I'm bored. Like, I don't want to keep just playing the same chords. So it's definitely a balance of trying to like understand if the crowd's enjoying that or not, and then you kind of just get over your boredness of just playing, because you play these songs over and over at different venues, and then it's like, man, should we keep playing this song? Because we play this every time.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've realized that it's very fresh for other people.
Right.
And that's kind of a barrier that a lot of us have to get over, I think, as musicians. Just to be like, you know what? You're playing live music at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, for somebody. And whether it sounds just like the song or you spice it up a little bit, like you're still performing. Yeah.
I guess that's why a lot of artists don't even perform live, right? Some people just are in the studio.
Just write music, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to, there are a couple artists like, I don't know if you guys know Still Woozy. He's a little more like experimental with like sounds and stuff, but his music is really good. But when he played live and I saw him live, it was just boring because there wasn't anybody. Me, I like natural like music instruments. I like to see somebody playing it, and I like to know where that noise is coming from. With his music, he's got a lot of like effects and things. So
that are like electronic,
right? Yeah, someone's probably programmed that into a track, and he's just singing to it. And you got the drums and the guitar, but yeah, it's hard to transfer some of the music you record into like a live setting because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I think of technology and these advancements, and you can be a whole band on a computer, right?
Literally, you could be an AI band.
Well, especially you knowing how to play more than one instrument, even if you wanted to record the different parts and mash it up, right? But then now we have that AI can make music and actually make your chorus for you and have people's voices involved. You can have AI background singers, right? Things like that. But you can't replace a live drummer or a live guitarist, right? You may be able to replace the sound, but that experience is something that people like you will always be valuable for.
Right.
And, you know, we have this conversation for almost since the beginning of our podcast of kind of why AI isn't going to be able to recreate a Jimi Hendrix guitar or something like that. And why do you think that is? Or do you think it's possible that you'll be able to one day get the same feel from AI generated music?
It's, for musicians at least, like it's the person behind what they're playing is what's giving you the feeling, you know? Like Jimi Hendrix was a very humble guy, you know, like in some of his interviews, you're like, man, give yourself a little more credit, you know, like you're like shredding out there. And it's like those interviews and those other things other than listening to their music kind of like builds this emotion and feeling that when they play, you're like, man, there's nothing else like that, you know? But yeah, AI, I think it is going to be like in a specific niche. There's going to be like a niche for it where people are going to like that, but
maybe in movies and stuff like that.
like more production, like more overproduced things like movies and things where it's like you don't really want a live band for that. You want it to be a little more overproduced because you need it to fit the movie or fit whatever's there. But when you're going to a concert, you're going for the feeling, you know, you're going for that like experience. So I just,
the individualism.
Right. And then you're kind of appreciating this person doing their craft and then going out and just performing it for you. So
True.
I don't think AI's got nothing on it.
I mean, think about like Taylor Swift, how she has this die-hard cult following, right? Like, there's nothing that a computer is going to do that can recreate that. There's no way.
Right.
And then especially over a period of time, there's so many people that have grown up listening to Taylor Swift, and so they just have this emotional connection to her performances and her as a person, because they've heard her talk about her relationships that failed and the inspiration behind what caused her to make certain songs or those things, right? So like you said, the background and the depth will never be reproduced within a computer.
Yeah, the pain that individual went through, people connect with that pain, and then they're like, all right, now you're expressing my pain for me. I want to express it, but you do it much better. So I'm gonna turn you on. You know?
Right.
Nice. That's a good point. Because everybody wants to be relatable or feel like they're included, you know, and
that's why it's crazy. I know I've seen some of my favorite artists, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole in concert, and when I see J. Cole reciting the lyrics to these songs that I know by heart too, it's crazy because this man went through it though. You know, he's the one that was really there in the bedroom with the
wrote it on a piece of paper at some point, and
it's just amazing.
Way different hearing them say it to you, and you're like, oh. Yeah. When I listen to my headphones, I didn't feel all that. It's a whole nother. I didn't even like 21 Savage until I saw him live, and it was at the J. Cole concert I went to, and I was like, oh, like I feel this music a lot more. Feeling the bass, like I'm big on feeling music. I'm big on bass lines. Even my baby likes bass. She'll hear bass and start waving her hand, you know. And there's just something about when a song starts out with like the right beat, I'm intrigued automatically. And I've had songs where I listened to the first 10 seconds, turned it off, and then months later I gave it a try. I'm like, oh, I actually like this song. But something about the bass pulls me in initially. You know? Is that something that you think is tied to personality? Or
yeah, I think it can be, because some people listen to music for the lyrics, and their personality is a little more like, I want to know what this person's going through, like a little more empathetic. Or, you know, like you say you're driven by the bass, like you like the feeling. And for me, it's the instruments. I rarely listen to the lyrics first. It's usually the instruments and just the melodies to it. I would say it's a personality thing. Not now going in more in depth, like what those are. I wouldn't know, but I can definitely see that it would be like a personality thing based on what you listen to in certain parts of the songs.
Now, from you working with different musicians, do you think that personalities are tied to what type of instrument someone may like to play?
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, because each instrument kind of has its place.
Personality almost.
So, you know, I can say, oh, I sing and play guitar. So people automatically think, oh, you're in the front, like you're singing and you're playing the guitar. Or someone says I play the bass is usually chilling, you know? The bass is what holds it down with the drums, you know? And so typically those people tend to be a little more introverted, you know? And then the ones that are more in the front are a little more extroverted because, you're right there, you're singing for people, and then you have to keep them engaged. So there has to be a certain personality that you have that people want to, like, man, I'm intrigued by you. Not even just what you're doing, but just like by you as a person. So, I definitely think there's there's stereotypes of, you know, band members and stuff, you know, drummers always late and stuff like that, you know, but, and I think it makes it really fun as a band just to be like, well, he's the bass player. So it's, and I don't think musicians ever like take that personally. It's just like, it is the way it is, you know? Everybody's got their little niche, and so, I definitely think that's true.
Bass player up in the mic, like, out there, right?
It's rare to see that, and there are some, like, metal bands where the bass player's the lead singer, but then it's just, like, they're not necessarily engaging with the crowd, they're engaging with the music and just trying to, like, you know, like push the music as the personality instead of me getting up there playing a song and being like, how you guys feeling? Like, blah, blah, you know, like
emceeing kind of with it. Right. It's just the music. This is what you get.
Yeah,
that is really interesting. When I met Blake, he had a snare pad in his room, and he used to play the little snare drum. Do you have the snare drum personality? I'm wondering.
I've always been percussion. You know? I was lucky enough to go through a school system where we had to learn instruments. So I played some guitar, learned the xylophone, the drums, the recorder. We all played the recorder, right? And just a wide variety of instruments I was introduced to before I was even 10 years old. And I always liked the drums. I had a drum set in my basement growing up. And I was never great at the drums, and they were loud, so I felt like I would play, but I didn't have like a purpose behind it. I went through a small phase where I was like, I want to make a song on the drums, which like it was just hard for me to really understand what that'd be like, and to like reproduce it after I made the song and things like that. And I've always been into singing, and you know, just being able to like have a beat on my lap. I think about drums and percussion, and that being like the foundation of music, at least the music that I've always been able to connect with and enjoy the most. You know, I've joked with, well, not joked, like I want to record a song with Mo. I'm gonna just put that out there. I've been saying it for a while now. We're gonna get in there. Y'all hear me on these intros, right? I mean, but I've always really liked the drummer role, and I like being able to tie that initial just bass sound into all the snare and the tom-toms and the cymbals, and just how they can do so much. Is, you know, I would never disrespect a brass instrument or a guitar or something, because you can do a lot with a guitar too, but it's like the drummer always felt like they're playing 10 instruments at once, and I've just had a lot of been intrigued by that. No, and I mean, the drums are like the bass line, you know? It's like it's what I kind of try to explain it as like the bass and the drums are what's holding it down. And then you have, you know, your rhythm guitar and you have your lead guitar. Your lead guitar is a little more flashy. Your rhythm guitar is going to hold it down and probably sing more because it's easier to do the rhythm and sing. But at the end of the day, like, you take away the drums and the bass, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, what, you know, you almost have to create a structure with, or like a rhythm with your guitar to keep that drum, you know, like doing like palm mutings and just like having like certain strums. And that's playing without a drummer for a long time. I've try to learn to like keep the rhythm with just playing the guitar. And I tend to, sometimes when we play as a band, I play very similar to the drummer, but with my guitar. But because I've been sufficing for, you know, the drummer not being there, now that he's there, like, I can kind of hold off a little bit on, you know, trying to keep the rhythm, because that part's there now. Nice.
What kind of music was playing around you when you were young? Like when you were a baby, going 5 years old, like what kind of music was getting played around you by the people?
I grew up in a Christian home, so a lot of, you know, like Kurt Franklin and Mary Mary, and just a lot of music with a lot of emotion to it. And that's definitely shaped me as a musician now, because a lot of my music has so much emotion tied to it, because that's what I've heard, and that's what makes me feel the best, you know?
For sure.
Like when Kurt Franklin would just like, oh man, when he would just belt out or just like hit like a certain note, you're like, oh my goodness, like it doesn't matter what you're saying at this point, like you hit that and it, so... and then my dad's background is very like cumbia, Spanish music, Caribbean music. So it's a lot of percussion. It's a lot of like just like I said, percussion instruments. My dad would play with his hands. He would do like, you know, just do like a little beats with his hands, and he was always a percussionist. So I think that's also why I also was a little more rhythm guitar.
I've always felt like I had a little cultural connection to percussion too.
Sure.
You know, you think about African roots, like where they have bongos and they're out there dancing and singing.
You don't, it's just, you can have a drum line and not have any music, and it just fills so much.
Yeah,
you know,
you still
it
feel
fills
it,
so much
really
space.
get into it.
Yeah, and way before they were putting it down onto sheet music and learning how to read it, it's all just from the soul, right? And that's why they talk about hip hop stems back to the African drums, and it's a beautiful thing what it's progressed into, but it used to just be a feeling and a ritual to express yourself, right?
I mean, think about back in grade school, somebody just hitting the table and having the pencil, and everybody's
like,
we start freezing. Like, all of a sudden,
yeah,
it's just so simple, but it can evoke that emotion still.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe there's always a rhythm. This is, rhythm and blessings, rhythm and balance. This is part of our production, but I feel like there's always a rhythm happening around us. So it's like we give it life when we hit something, and it's like, oh wow, we're bringing that out into a perceptible place.
Yeah, and then me, I'm like in distress mode when my rhythm is out of whack. Like I have this routine I like to go through so I can make sure I have my rhythm set for the day, and then I carry that up until the nighttime, right? And then sometimes the day doesn't start the way you want to, and you feel kind of like you're playing catch up all day, and that's why the mindfulness is so important, and having that time to be alone. I know musicians and artists take pride in that because it's so necessary to be able to create, be in your own headspace, which I respect a lot from artists as well, because a lot of people that don't create or aren't artists, they don't like spending that time with themselves and their own thoughts, because they don't know how to express it, right? And so the music is the expression, right? And then being able to write and make the sounds and have other people relate to that, it's a healthy outlet. So I can assume that the times in your life where you felt like you weren't able to make the music as frequently as you wanted to, you probably had maybe a not so positive emotional response in those times.
It was a sad time for sure. Just because it's like everything's still there, but like you're either hiding it or you're just like pushing it, like you're just it's fine, we'll get to it, and then that's never good for anybody for any reason to do. So and that, it goes back to relationships too. You just really have to be able to be very individual, because whoever's gonna be with me, you're gonna get a song written about you. Like that's just what's gonna happen. And some people who can't accept that, like you said, when there's other people appreciating you for what you're creating. And
or
if
what
that
feeling from
the feeling from it, also, and jealousy can be a huge thing in that, as well as just like gatekeeping, like I want the songs to be all about me, or things like that. And it's like,
who's this song about?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's got to be like, you just kind of have to let it let it be.
For sure. Like, who's this brunette you were singing about? It's like, that doesn't fit me.
But then like even now, some songs that I wrote about other people, then like it detaches from the person, and it just is the song now. And I kind of, in my last show, I was kind of explaining that, because I went through a lot of my songs that I wrote from 2019 up until like 2021, which was a very emotional time. So those songs just had a lot of emotion to it, but they detached from the person that I wrote about them for.
Like Brown Eyed Girl, right? It's like you hear that and there's not like a specific person that anybody's thinking of, but it's such a iconic song, right?
But hey there, Delilah, though. It's like, you know exactly who that was about.
Put her on blast.
Hey, that's true.
That's funny. Yeah, you ever name drop in your song?
No.
Yeah, that's probably good.
I think I'm gonna stay away from that.
Yeah, that's a bold move. That's funny. So, are there any specific special projects you're working on right now, or you're just kind of doing your thing, writing?
Yeah. So, actually, September 22nd, I'm going to release my first acoustic album.
Let's go.
There's 11 songs on it, and the album name is 1111.
Nice.
Angel numbers,
Nice.
But, so those songs... it's kind of like let me release this so I can move on to the next point in my life. Just because those songs were tied to a lot of old experiences. So yeah, I'm really excited to just like kind of get those out. It's just going to be me and my guitar, me layering on top of my own voice and just getting it out there, and then moving on from there with, you know, the bands that I have and stuff. So I'm super excited for that.
It's that Alicia Keys vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, man, she goes crazy with the layer. I'm like, whoa, I didn't know this was all her.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Right. When you hear multiple voices and it's just the same person, you're like, oh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we're looking forward to hearing that. We'll be looking out for it. Where can we find that?
I'm going to release it everywhere. So it'll be going to Spotify, iTunes, Google, whatever you guys listen.
Under Maduro?
Yeah, it'll be under Maduro.
Nice. Cool. All right.
I think one of my last questions for you, Mo, because we've been talking about all this stuff, and it makes me think about Mac Miller, because he's like my favorite artist, to be honest, and he plays all the instruments, such an amazing musician, and he's someone who I wish I could have seen in person. If I could see one person from any of the past, it'd be Mac Miller. And I'm wondering for you, if you could see one artist perform out of anyone who's lived, who would that be?
Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah, he kind of set a huge tone for musicians that have great voices and have great songwritings, but can also sit back and just wail on the guitar and just kind of like create another song just through just playing. And I think he built a good structure for a lot of artists now. John Mayer is very much like him. Gary Clark Jr. Also the same. So, you know, I really appreciate those guys who kind of like laid out kind of like a structure of like, you can do this. Yeah. So
Nice.
yeah.
You want to answer that question, Blake?
Yeah. I want to hear your guys's.
Honestly, I got to say James Brown, because I'm about the energy, right? And he just always had the energy on the stage, and he's one of those people who had the infectious personality off of the stage. He was just always so genuine and himself, smiling, right?
Yeah.
And just when I play his music for my daughter, you can tell that she feels it too.
Yeah.
And then I'll like look at her and be like, baby, baby, baby. And when that song comes on, it's just cool. And energy is big for me, especially if we're talking live performances, right? Because I've seen like TDE perform, and all those people, SZA, Sir, Absol, their craft is so clean that they didn't need any of the extra things, the theatrics that like Kendrick had with his performance. And so I loved watching them so much, and those were like more lower level energy performances where you're just having like that connection with them and you're like intrigued. But I haven't really been to a performance where the artist is like a performer, right? That's what they're doing, like moving on the stage and having like that type of experience.
Yeah, because he doesn't say much, and it's like really repetitive, you know?
Right.
So
he's not like a great lyricist or anything, which like me now in the music I listen to, like J. Cole, Jay-Z and stuff like that, I do appreciate the words they're saying, but him, it's like all energy.
Yeah.
He's up there screaming half the time.
Right.
But it would just be a different experience. I think it would be really unique to
True. Yeah. I saw Lionel Richie perform with my dad. And the craziest part about this was watching all these people in my dad's age demographic hear these songs that were just sparking emotion in them. I was seeing these grown people, they're crying, they're singing every lyric. You could tell they're thinking about a past relationship, and they're just like, it hit their soul so much. So he was doing great, but I was more like, wow, like look at the way everyone's responding to this guy, you know? Like, it was amazing.
Yeah. Maddie's CEO of her company, I overheard one of their meetings. I hope I don't get in trouble, but he was talking about Stevie Wonder. Even in his old age, he made a surprise appearance, and he can still sing to the point where it evokes that emotion from people, right?
Yeah.
And obviously he doesn't sound the same that he did 40 years ago, but it's still captivating. And he's still very talented too. And for him to be blind, right?
Yeah.
You talk about trying to have people understand you and connect with you, that is really amazing too. I think about like Ray Charles, somebody else that I'd be interested in seeing in person after seeing his movie and the story in the background.
Right.
That, like you said, when you know the background, what people have gone through, their music means so much more.
It means
too.
more, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I think that, you know, our appreciation for music should always stay strong, because nowadays everything's so digitized. You know, I think that there's a shift of younger people that don't really know what it's like to see real live music.
Right.
I think Travis Scott is cool, but that's not what I think of when I think of live music, right? So things are changing a little bit, and I'm so glad that people like you are staying true to the art and putting it out there. So we'll be sure to have everybody tune in and check out.
Yes,
you said September 22nd?
September 22nd.
11/11. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys.
And taking time out of your Saturday. Mo has to perform later today.
Yeah, good luck. You know, that's going to be cool.
No, I'm stoked.
She don't need luck. Sure need that. Yeah.
What's a better thing to say to a musician when they're about to go on than like good luck? Because
break a leg.
Have fun. Like
that's honestly a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest thing is I just want people to just see me.
Yeah.
I just want people to show up. You don't have to say anything to me. It doesn't have to, you don't have to like promote me. I just want to be able to like open my eyes and see people there like paying attention, listening to me, being intrigued and being very intimate with me.
I feel it. Talk is cheap, you know, just pull up.
Pull up. That's all real. I need.
I
like that.
Yeah. Love that. Walk it like I talk it.
Yeah.
Awesome. This has been an amazing conversation.
Yes. No, I appreciate you guys.
Will remind everyone to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're on Spotify, share it with somebody, at least one person that you love a whole lot. And again, R&B podcast, Russ Blake, Miss Moriah Maduro.
Thank you.
Like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Yes.
Peace.